Senate to order. Sergeant Arms, please secure the chamber doors. Members, please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right, Senators, this morning we are very pleased to have Rabbi Andrew Bush of Baltimore Hebrew Congregation in Baltimore, Maryland, guest of the distinguished senator from the 11th District. Please rise for the invocation.
Mr. President, thank you. Senator Hedelman, thank you. The irony that would have a rabbi standing here invoking on Good Friday during Ramadan, in a year where Passover is so many weeks away, even the Jews are confused, speaks to the heritage actually that has Jewish members of this Senate, and that actually leads to the heritage of the founding of my synagogue, Baltimore Hebrew Congregation, the first synagogue in the state of Maryland, thanks to action of the government, delayed a bit from the founding of the country. And so as I share these words, I wish meaningful and peaceful holidays to all of those who celebrate at this moment and in the coming weeks. May we give thanks for all that is holy and all that we aspire to achieve. The overlapping meanings of that term "we" includes elected officials and those who work with you, but also those who live in our great state of Maryland, who simply try to make their lives by working, something we understand as dangerous in this past week. Awash in information and opinion, may we continually learn to discern worthwhile knowledge and well-intentioned perspectives. May we filter out the ideas that would divide us with hate or mistrust. Only thus will we simultaneously understand that we are all equal as humans, even as we recognize our individuality and acknowledge our differences. I cannot stand in your midst at this moment and not pray for peace and also for safety. May we reject the divisions of all prejudices and hatreds, for only in this way will we make progress. With this mindset, may hard work spur achievement in far-flung areas of governance and society. May goodwill draw us together to forge successful initiatives. As my congregation's prayer book states, may the one whose spirit is with us in every righteous deed be with all who work for the good of humanity and bear the burdens of others. In our prayers and our actions, may these be our aspirations, and may we achieve them. Amen.
Recognizing the senator from District 11.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I am very pleased to welcome Rabbi Bush. I am blessed in my district and elsewhere to call many people my rabbi. Even though I don't belong to his congregation, I feel like he and his wife, who also happens to be a rabbi, both as part of my spiritual clan. So I really, really appreciate his remarks. And as you can tell, he and his congregation have been real leaders in terms of interfaith efforts in the community. And so I am so pleased to welcome him today and ask that we journalize his remarks.
Absolutely. Without objection, we will journalize the wonderful rabbi's invocation this morning and thank him very much. Recognizing the senator from the 43rd District.
Thank you so much. I also want to join in welcoming our rabbi, my wife's rabbi, and the place where our son was. So anyway, I just wanted to say thank you, and it's good to see you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Has everyone recorded their presence this morning? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 43 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is now yet again back in session. Let's start with guest introductions. Senator from the 27th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, day 2 of District 27's intros. To my right, if you two would stand up, please, for a second. To my right, we have one member who is not a stranger to this chamber, Andrew Zander. He has a little bit of, as we said yesterday in Southern Maryland, we're all related. So he has a relationship with our Senate Secretary of the Senate. Andrew Zander is a graduating senior at Honeytown High School. He is headed off to Salisbury University in the fall. Congratulations to Andrew. Andrew interned in my office over the past summer and earlier this session. He's a fine young man who's distinguished himself in our summer intern program, so much so that he joined us for a bit of our legislative session when he had half days on Fridays and came up before he started back with tennis. He also gets his political acumen, obviously, from his mom. I like to embarrass him in her presence. So thank you all. Could we give Andrew a warm Senate welcome? So.
Welcome back.
That's part of the, secondly, if I might, Mr. President,
proceed.
secondly, we have Ms. Grace Minikowski. Grace is a junior at Honeytown High School who who interned in our legislative office over the past summer as well. I spoke yesterday about the program we have with high schoolers, interns in our 3 counties. She's very active in her school and far beyond that, having served as an officer of the Maryland Youth Advisory Council, Legislative Committee, and numerous other community activities in Calvert County. Additionally, she has been recently elected or selected in February to serve as a student member of the Calvert County Board of Education, and we're going to need your help in 24-25 school year. She's amazing, and with these young future leaders, Mr. President, I'm reminded every day that I'm only keeping the seat warm for tomorrow's leaders. So if we could welcome Ms. Grace to our chambers as well.
Welcome.
And lastly, 2 of our former interns are up top. Stand up, gentlemen. One represents parts of Prince George and Charles County, Demetrius Briscoe, senior at Bowie State, and Justin Thompson graduated from Salisbury, then his master's at George Mason. They help us out in our community, and I appreciate what they do, and thank you for the time, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, welcome. Yes, Senator from Carroll County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to ask the body to give a warm welcome. I have my family here today, and I'm very happy that they could be here today on a spring break, and I'm going to ask them to stand. This is my wife, Ruth, is here, and my daughter, Brooklyn, and my son, Caleb, and they're here to see us in action today, and I know they'll be riveted by what we do today. Thank you.
Welcome.
The body,
Great
give
to
a warm
see you
welcome.
all. Might be the appropriate time to say I have my own Caleb here as well, and daughter CJ, who is here off for school today and joining for the Senate activities. So, thanks for joining us. Yes, Senator from the 22nd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. Today during our voting session, I heard a little baby in the background, and I didn't know who it was. And I turned around, it was this bundle of joy here. That my wife surprised me to be up here, otherwise they would be on the floor. I just want to recognize my niece and my nephew, Tariq and Sully, who's in the gallery right now over there, and also my beautiful wife, Rohi Washington, who's here as well, and then my favorite constituent, Ms. Zaina Washington, who's here on the floor with us today. I'm just excited to be here with her. Thank you, Mr. President.
Most certainly. Thank you. Thanks for the full experience. Look at that. She's ready to rock and roll. She's like locked in. It's awesome. Yeah. Senator from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have my family here too, and I'll start out with my daughter, but she's a little bit bigger than everybody else's daughters here. But that's Krista and her husband, George. Stand up, George. They want to see you. And my grandchildren, Alex and Elizabeth. They like it up there better than down here. And my husband, who everybody always says, "Are you really married?" So he's here. He's there. So welcome to Annapolis, and we'll see you later.
Excellent. Well, wonderful family lunches today. That's the plan. Yes, Senator from the 14th District.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just to comment with the Senator from District 8, I couldn't actually see her husband from here, so but I did rise for some guest introductions. First, I have Shannon Sullivan, Chief of Staff in my office, Clara Miller, and one of our other great teammates from Department of Legislative Services, who's been a great teammate. Emily Haskell's also here. So just wanted to welcome them all to the Senate floor.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. We appreciate all their great work as well. Thank you all. All right, any further introductions before we jump in today? Senator from Montgomery County? Nope? Okay. Let's see. So before we get fully into the work, let me find the right. So as many members will remember, we used to have the, what are they called? What is it? The bust. They weren't really quite bust, but they were full statues, but they're small. Minarets, I can't remember the name exactly what the official name was, that went in for cleaning and restoration. And so, this space has been very not activated. It has been very open, other than when we have flowers on opening day. And so we've been thinking for a while about options of what could be there that would be representative of Maryland and thoughtful. And I just want to thank the Center for Arts and History, Maryland Culture and History, and the archives. This was an excellent first effort at figuring out some representative pieces. They really did an excellent job. I don't know that the scale of them is going to work at the end of the day, but they are very interesting pieces. And I will actually read so that folks know. We'll find the appropriate way to continue to maintain them. But we have two different ships. The first is a log canoe, which is, it's a model of a log canoe, which is representative of the first inhabitants of what would become the colony of Maryland, the many indigenous peoples who lived on this land. Canoes were made of loblolly pine and tulip poplar. Suitable tree trunks were hollowed out with fire using oyster shells to scrape away the charred wood. This style of canoe also had an influence on the design of later Chesapeake Bay watercraft. So this is the 5-log canoe, which was constructed in 1962 off of a model, and it's from the Maryland Center for History and Culture. So it goes back to the deepest roots of Maryland. And then on the left, to the chamber's right, we have the Ark, which I'm sure most folks are very familiar with, which is the model of the Ark, one of the first 2 English ships to arrive in Maryland in 1634, founding the colony of Maryland. The Ark was a 400-ton cargo ship hired by Cecil Calvert to transport about 140 colonists and their supplies. The Ark and its smaller companion ship, the Dove, landed at St. Clement's Island on March 25th, 1634. These first settlers to Maryland included people of diverse religions and 9 indentured, including the first black Marylander, Matthias D'Souza. And this was constructed in 1956 and on loan from the Center of History and Culture. So interesting pieces. Certainly, they are, I think there's been lots of different reactions from folks as they've come in. And I love the concept of the ships. I think we're going to have to find a way that scale we may have to work on. But I did want to thank the archives. They worked really hard to come up with lots and lots of different ideas and work with the Center on History and Culture, and so we're getting there. We're close. We're getting into the spirit, and I think we're going to find something at some point here as we move forward. Yes, Senator from Anne Arundel.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's just one problem. We can't see the lovely Sally from here, and sometimes having her there is really important. So I just offer that on scale.
Absolutely, yes. The practicality challenges. There also is the possibility that we could leave it for the interim because there's a long time that we are not here. And people want to see the chamber, and so there's lots of different options that we can pursue here. But the senator from Montgomery County, it's his favorite piece. He's very upset that we may have to find something of smaller scale, but we will find something that will work. So without further ado, anything else before we jump in today? Anything else before we jump in? If not, so be considered the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. Let's start with a message from the House of Delegates. Clerk, read the message.
House Bill 538, the Speaker, Land Use, Affordable Housing, Zoning Density, and Permitting Housing Expansion and Affordability Act of 2024.
All right, the bill having been read will be referred to the Rules Committee. Let's go ahead and start, if we may, if we're ready, on the second reader. We have a layover calendar, number 48. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 361, the President, Maryland Consolidated Capital Bond Loan of 2024. Question is on the adoption of the 171 committee amendments and the favorable report.
Recognizing the chair of the Capital Budget Subcommittee, question is on the 171 amendments Senator may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, the Senate Budget Taxation Committee recommends 171 amendments to Senate Bill 361, and this is the capital budget of fiscal year 2025. These amendments are indicated on the committee reprint and described in the committee report that was available on Thursday. Colleagues, when I'm going through the 171 amendments, I would look at this. This is the report that's probably best because it'll not only give you the amendment number, but the description. The way that we're going to proceed is that I'm going to go through all the amendments at one time, and then at the end, I'll move for the favorable on the amended committee report. But look, this capital budget is consistent with the same posture we've taken over the many years, and that's taking a fair and balanced approach, and that making sure that the capital budget invests in all parts of our state. In approaching this year's work, we addressed the state's critical infrastructure, created tens of thousands of direct and indirect jobs, assisted our communities, higher education institutions, hospital, local governments, and non-for-profit organizations. Mr. President, colleagues, with all the young family members in today, it reminds us that this capital budget is also going to make sure that they have an adequate place to learn. And we did all this while staying within our spending affordability limits and our capital debt affordability limits. Again, I'm going to go ahead and go through the entire capital budget that we have. Once we do that, we're going to adopt it, and then we're going to offer additional amendments where appropriate. I would just ask if any members have any amendments of their own, please wait until the end, and they should all be drawn to the committee reprint. And now, Mr. President, with your permission, I'll turn to the amendments.
Senator may proceed.
Okay. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment 2 through 10 pertain to the Board of Public Works, the Department of Ag, University System of Maryland, St. Mary's College of St. Mary's College of Maryland, the Maryland Higher Education Commission, and Morgan State University. Amendment 1 deals with the Board of Public Works. Amendment 3 adds funds for 2 projects in the Department of Ag. Amendment 4 reduces funding in the University System of Maryland. Amendment 5 and 6 add funding, and Amendment 7 adds intent language. In St. Mary's College of Maryland, Amendment 8 adds funding for the project, and in the Maryland Higher Education Commission, Amendment 9 increases funding. In Morgan State University, Amendment 10 increases funding. Moving on to Amendments 11 through 15 pertain to the Department of Housing and Community Development. Amendments 11 through 13 restrict funding for specified projects within the Department of Housing and Community Development. Amendments 13 through 15 reduce general obligation funding for the strategic demolition home ownership, and it reappropriates them to other projects that are priorities, and that's consistent with the rental housing programs, which are fully funded using a combination of bonds and general funds. Colleagues, now moving your attention to items to Amendments 16 through 144. These pertain to the miscellaneous grant programs. Amendments 16 through 18 increase funding for certain miscellaneous grants. Amendment 19 through 144 add miscellaneous grants for various projects. I would remind colleagues as we're going through this that there's multiple parts of the capital budget. So for certain projects, it might be in different areas. Amendment 145 pertains to the Maryland Hospital Association, which adds funding for the Howard County General Hospital. Amendments 146 through 147 pertain to local Senate initiatives. And Amendment 147 allocates remaining general obligations for the House of Delegates capacity, as I mentioned yesterday. Amendment 148 pertains to the administration of miscellaneous grants and amends language. Amendments 149 and 171 pertain to pre-authorizations and prior authorizations and pre-authorizations. Mr. President, I would move adoption of Amendments 1 through 171, but I'd like to separate out Amendment 69 and Amendment 150.
All right, the senator has moved for the adoption of Amendments 1 through 171, but for 79, 69, and
150.
And 150.
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, 69 and 150.
Correct.
All right, question is on the amendments, absent those two. Any discussion on the adoption of the amendments? Any objection to the adoption of the amendments? Without objection, the amendments are adopted. Question now is on the, does the senator wish to take them up separately?
I
One
would
by
like
one?
to take up number 69 separately and 150 separately, so they're
All
going to be
right.
separated.
So the question before the body at this point is on amendment number 69.
And I would like to reference that.
Senator
Mi-
may proceed.
So, Mr. President, we're now doing the capital budget in Maryland, and it's reminded by the senator from District 27 that we're just in these seats for a short time, keeping them warm for future generations. And I'm reminded of my predecessor, our good friend Senator Doug Peters. And one of the last conversations that I had with him was over the summer, where he mentioned the Maryland Society SAR Revolutionary War Memorial and how this was a priority for him. So what I've done is I've separated out this item that was a priority for Senator Doug Peters in honor of our colleague, so we can help to continue to honor his memory and his legacy by taking a separate vote on this. But I would obviously urge us all to vote favorable on this project.
All right, question remains on amendment number 69. Senators requested a roll call vote on the amendment. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, the committee amendment number 69 is adopted. Senator may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Amendment 150 no, there's nothing wrong with it. It's dealing with Johns Hopkins University. We all have, we're a part-time legislature, so we just want to make sure that everyone is able to vote if they need to take the rule. So I would move favorable on Amendment 150. It's dealing with Johns Hopkins.
All right, this is amendment number 150. Senator has requested a roll call vote. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, amendment number 150 is adopted. That takes care of the amendments. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections to the adopting the favorable committee report as amended? Without objection, the report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Chair
Yes.
recognizes the chair of the subcommittee.
I have an amendment at the desk. Hold on,
Senator
sir.
has an amendment. The pages will collect and distribute the senator's amendment.
Mr. President, if you could let me know when I can explain them.
Senator may explain the amendment.
Great. Colleagues, most of these amendments were already discussed in committee. These were just items that needed to be included in the capital budget. These amendments modify funding for several miscellaneous projects and bond initiative projects at the request of members and add pre-authorizations for 3 projects. I would move the committee amendments.
All right. The senator moves the committee amendment. Any discussion of the amendment? Any objections to the amendment? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 361 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. All right, excellent. Let's take up its companion piece, which is layover calendar number 49. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 966, Senator Zucker, prior authorizations of state debt alterations. Question is on the adoption of the 13 committee amendments and the favorable report.
All right, recognizing the chair of the subcommittee.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I am looking for, hold on for 1 second, sir. Can we just, what's after this? Because I just need to find.
We can come back to this if we'd like to special order it for 30 minutes.
Yeah, I just need to define the amendments that everything is just.
All right, Senator has
technical,
moved
but,
to special order the bill for 30 minutes. Any objections to the special order? Without objection, the bill will be special ordered for 30 minutes from now. All right. Let's go ahead and take up let's go to Committee on Finance. And start with consent calendar number 7. Clerk will read the calendar.
Report of the Committee on Finance, report number 43, consent calendar number 7.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a lot of files on my desk. The House bills on this report have no amendments and are the same as the cross-filed Senate bills that unanimously passed the Senate. I move the bills on this report.
All right, the chair moves that we adopt the favorable committee report for House bills on consent number 7. Senators, please take a look at these bills, see if there are any that we want to take up separately. Any separations? If not, question is on the favorable reports. Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee reports for House bills on consent number 7 are adopted, and the bills are ordered passed to third reading. Let's go to consent calendar number 8. Clerk, read the calendar.
Report of the Committee on Finance, report number 44, consent calendar number 8.
Recognizing chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The House bills on this report have no amendments and are the same as the cross-filed Senate bills that unanimously passed the Senate. I move the bills on this report.
All right, the senator moves for the adoption of the favorable committee reports on consent calendar number 8. Please take a look at the bills. Are there any bills that senators wish to separate? If not, any objections to the adoption of the reports? Without objection, the favorable committee reports for bills on calendar number 8 are adopted, and the bills are ordered passed to third reading. Let's go to number 9. Clerk will read the calendar.
Report of the Committee on Finance, report number 45, consent calendar number 9.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Once again, these are House bills on this report that have no amendments and are the same as the cross-filed Senate bills that unanimously passed the Senate. I move the bills on this report.
All right, the chair moves that we adopt the favorable committee report for the House bills on consent number 9. Any separations that senators wish to take up separately? If not, any objections to the reports? Without objection, the favorable committee reports for House bills on calendar number 9 are adopted, and the bills are ordered passed for third reading. We've got another one, consent 10. Clerk will read the calendar.
Report of the Committee on Finance, report number 46, consent calendar number 10.
Recognizing chair of the committee.
Thank you again, Mr. President. These are House bills on this report that have no amendments and are same as the cross-filed Senate bills that unanimously passed the Senate. I move the bills on this report.
The chair moves that we adopt the favorable committee report for the House bills on consent calendar number 10. Are there any bills that senators wish to separate? If not, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee reports for calendar number 10 are adopted, and the bills are ordered passed for third reading. We've got another one. Clerk will read the calendar.
Report of the Committee on Finance, report number 47, consent calendar number 11.
Recognizing chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The House bills on this report have no amendments and are the same as the cross-filed Senate bills that unanimously Senate. I move the bills on this report.
All right, the chair moves that we adopt the favorable committee reports for the House bills on the calendar. Any bills that senators wish to separate? If not, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee reports for the House bills on calendar number 11, consent calendar number 11 are adopted, and the bills are ordered passed for third reading. Number 12. Clerk will read the calendar.
Report of the Committee on Finance, report number 48, consent calendar number 12.
Recognizing chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the last consent calendar. The House bills on this report have no amendments and are the same as the cross-filed Senate bills that unanimously passed the Senate. I move the bills on this report.
All right, the chair moves that we adopt the favorable committee report for the House bills on consent calendar number 12. Yes, chair recognizes the senator from the 35th District.
Yes, HB 728. Could we separate that one? Are you on number 12?
No, consent calendar number 12.
Finance report number 48.
Report number 48, consent calendar number 12.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was ahead of page. Sorry.
Okay.
Disregard.
No worries. All right. Any of the 4 bills on this one that senators wish to take up separately? If not, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report for House bills on consent calendar number 12 are adopted, and the bills are ordered passed for third reading. Let's go to a non-consent calendar. This is calendar report number 49. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 153, Delegate Rosenberg, medical records, fees, attorneys representing patients, favorable.
Recognizing the senator from the 33rd District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 153 is similar to Senate Bill 144, which passed the Senate earlier this session. The bill prohibits a healthcare provider or a representative of the healthcare provider from charging a fee for providing copies of a medical record requested by an attorney representing the patient for the purpose of filing a claim regarding or appealing a denial of Social Security disability income or Social Security benefits. The House amended the bill to require an attorney to provide documentation that the attorney is representing the patient for the purpose of Social Security disability income or Social Security benefits. There was no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Yes, Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore County on the report.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I have an amendment.
We have
Is
to
that in
take up the
order?
report first.
Okay.
Let's see if is there any discussion of the report? Any objections to the report? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Senator has an amendment. The pages will collect and distribute the senator's amendment.
There was a mistake.
I think this one might not be the right one.
Yeah.
Sorry, on the board.
Oh, sorry.
(926). All right, Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you very much. What this does is this conforms it technically back to what the Senate version of the bill was. There was a mistake in communication between the two houses, and I've spoken with the House sponsor as well as the chairman, and I'm hoping that will be accepted as a friendly amendment so the two bills can go in the same fashion.
All right, Senator moves the amendment. Let's hear from the floor leader.
We'll take this as a friendly amendment, Mr. President.
All right, no objections to the amendment from the committee. Any objections from the floor? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 153 is ordered passed to third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 603, Delegate Solomon, Consumer Protection, Online Products and Services, Data of Children, Maryland Kids Code, favorable.
Recognizing the senator from Montgomery County as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 603 is similar to Senate Bill 571, which passed the Senate earlier this session. The bill requires businesses that provide an online product reasonably likely to be accessed by children to complete a data protection impact assessment of the online product. This is a systematic survey to assess compliance with the duty to act in the best interests of children. The bill establishes numerous rules, procedures, and prohibitions related to the assessments. The bill also establishes prohibitions that apply to businesses that provide such online products. For example, prohibiting the processing of the personal data of a child in a way that is inconsistent with the best interests of children reasonably likely to access the online product. House amendments also authorize a business to allow a child's parent or guardian to monitor the child's online activity or track the child's location without providing an obvious signal to the child when the child is being monitored or tracked. There are no amendments. I move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion of the report? Any objections to the report? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 603 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 728, Delegate Cullison, Health Insurance Qualified Residence Enrollment Program, Access to Care Act, favorable.
All right, recognizing Senator from District 40 is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 728 is identical to Senate Bill 705, which passed the Senate earlier this session. The bill requires the Maryland Health Benefit Exchange, in consultation with the Insurance Commissioner and as approved by the Maryland Exchange Board, to submit a federal state innovation waiver to establish a qualified resident enrollment program and seek federal pass-through funding resulting from the implementation of the program. If the waiver is approved, the exchange, in consultation with the insurance commissioner and as approved by the exchange board, must establish and implement the program. There are no amendments, and I move the adoption of favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 728 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right. Let's go back to the special order if we can. If there are no objections to bring up the prior auth bill. Madam Clerk, if we could please read the bill.
Senate Bill 966, Senator Zucker, prior authorization of state debt alterations. Question is on the adoption of the 13 committee amendments and a favorable report.
All right, the question before the body is on the 13 committee amendments. Are there any objection to the committee amendments? Without objection, the 13 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Recognizing the chair of the subcommittee has an amendment.
Actually, sir, I think we're good to go. I just wanted to verify that there was no change in the past when it comes to funding the boats that we have up there.
Oh,
I just need to make
thank you.
But no, we're good to go. So I'd move adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves. No, excuse me. We've done that. The question now is, do we have an amendment for the bill or its title? Senator from the 22nd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have an amendment.
Senator has
here.
an amendment. Pages will collect and distribute the senator's amendment. All right, Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I talked to the subcommittee chair, who's fantastic at his job. This just takes one of a previous funding for a project to another funding of a project within the same town in the city of New Carrollton. So I move the adoption of the amendment.
All right, Senator has moved the amendment. Let's hear from the chair.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, what you're going to see is we try to double, triple, quadruple check everything, so we just want to make sure that we get it right. There's still going to be time when it moves over to the House, but absolutely this is a friendly amendment. We discussed it, and again, the prior auth bill is just supposed to reflect technical changes that members have, and this is one of them, so we accept it as a friendly amendment.
All right, any further, let's adopt, is this on the amendment, Senator, or a separate amendment? Okay, on this amendment, on Senator from the 22nd District's amendment, any objections? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Senator from the 28th District is recognized and has an amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I have one amendment.
All right, we'll collect and distribute the
two
senator's
more.
amendment. Give us just a moment to get it up on the board. All right, Senator may explain the amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I spoke with the chair of the subcommittee, and this amendment just corrects some technical language that is in the bill currently, and I move the amendment.
All right, Senator moves the amendment. Let's hear from the floor leader.
Yep, it's just technical. It's viewed as friendly.
All right, the committee views it as a friendly amendment. Any objections from the floor? If not, the amendment is adopted. Senator has a subsequent amendment. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. President.
All right, pages will collect and distribute the senator's amendment.
Second amendment.
All right, Senator may explain the amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. This amendment generally reallocate funds from previous years that were still unused for over almost 3 years, I believe, And we have our first Boys and Girls Club in Charles County in Indian Head. And this amendment is accumulating funds to create a second Boys and Girls Club, thanks to this body, in Waldorf, where the need is great. I move the amendment.
All right, Senator moves the amendment. Let's hear from the floor leader.
Yep, we view this as friendly.
All right. The committee views it as a friendly amendment. Any objections from the floor? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. We have a third amendment.
One last amendment, Mr. President,
right.
the very last.
Senator
In
will
the same
collect
posture.
and distribute. Just one moment, Senator. If we could get the pages to collect and distribute the amendment. All right, Senator may explain the amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. A lot of words, but turn to the back of the amendment, handed out in bold, similar posture, the Boys and Girls Club moving some funds that's sitting unused from prior years. I move the amendment, Mr.
All right,
President.
Senator moves the amendment. Floor leader.
Let's do this. I just want to look at this closer. So why don't we do this? You and I will talk offline. If we need to make a change on this, because I just need to get. So this is appropriating the $3 million that was already allocated. So it was an $85 million program, and this is just reauthorizing the $3 million that was already allocated for one project to another project, Waldorf. Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes,
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's friendly.
All right,
We
Senator-
talked about that yesterday, so same thing, yeah. Thank you.
All right, Senator views it as a friendly amendment. Any objections to the amendment? All right. If not, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Recognize the senator from Carroll County.
Mr. President, I'm not trying to come up the works, but there was something in here I thought was supposed to be here that is not, and I just caught it. So I don't know if could we delay for a little while on the calendar with this so I can just double check it.
We could say we could special order the bill for 30 minutes.
Yeah, please, if that's all right. And I apologize. I thought
No, let's
I
get it
was
right.
looking at the wrong thing. Thank
All
you.
right. Any objections from the floor? Without objection, the bill will be special ordered to the appropriate time in 30 minutes. All right. Let's go ahead. Do we have everybody here? It looks like we do. Madam Secretary, if we could ring the bells. If we could do a quorum call.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 45 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Let's go to special order calendar number 67. 67. Clerk will read the calendar.
Executive Nominations Report number 6. Question is, will the Senate advise and consent to the nominations of the executive?
All right, question before the body is, will the Senate advise and consent to the nominations of the executive? On report number 6, recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we accept the report before us with a couple of exceptions. And so we're going to move numbers 1 through 46, statewide 1 through 61, and locals 1 through 14, with the exceptions of number 6. And each one of these will be separate, with the exception of number 6, number 19, and number 23. S23. So with the exceptions of number 6, with the exception of number 19, and with the exception of S, or statewide 23.
All right, so make sure we're all on the same page. The senator has moved that we accept the report absent nominees 6, 19, and S23, which we will take up individually and after this one. So on the other nominees, is there any discussion on the nominees other than 6, 19, and S23? If not, the question is, will the Senate advise and consent? The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, the Senate advises and consents affirmatively to the nominations Clerk will read the next question. Each one's. All right. Question now before the body is, will the Senate advise and consent to nominee number 6? Chair recognizes the senator from the 28th District.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I move to special order number 6 till the appropriate time on Tuesday, next Tuesday.
All right. Senator has moved to special order the nominee until the appropriate time on Tuesday. Chair of the committee?
We'll accept that, Mr. President.
No objections from the committee. Any objections from the floor to special order the appropriate time on Tuesday? Without objection, the nominee will be special order to the appropriate time on Tuesday. Clerk will read the next question.
Executive Report number 6, will the Senate advise and consent to the nomination of the executive of nominee number 19?
Sorry, yes, it is the executive report number 6, but it is nominee number 19. Thank you. Question is on whether the Senate will advise and consent to nominee number 19. Chair recognizes the senator from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me start by saying that my remarks are neither personal against the nominee or partisan. This is a nomination for the State Board of Elections. I'm sure that colleagues are aware that it is just 5 people who oversee and certify our elections. The majority party has 3, including the chair. The minority party has 2 seats, including the vice chair. Traditionally, Mr. President, the 5 members have worked very collaboratively. It has been my honor in the 10 years that I've been in this body to work very closely with members from both parties on administrative, legislative, and implementation issues. When this person was nominated, it was my intent to research, have some conversations, but ultimately support the nomination. I have put a lot of time into this. And sadly, I'm rising to tell you that I'll be voting against the nomination, and I want to tell you why. I think one of the qualifications that we need to consider when selecting our members of the State Board of Elections is their temperament. Another is their judgment. I have found this nominee to be severely lacking on both. I will say also that much of this data has come since the Executive Nominations Committee review, questioning, and vote. And I want to thank the chair and the vice chair for the conversations that we've had. But I have made a lot of calls, frankly, to Republicans, and mostly to those in Howard County who know this nominee best. Words that have come up include inappropriate, litigious, and they talk about overstepping and boundaries. I'm not an attorney. I'm grateful to my staff who helped with some of the research online. We were able to find several lawsuits that this person was involved with, including one against the Howard County Planning Board, one against the County Detention Center. Both were dismissed as not being credible. And those were just 2 that were kind of low-hanging fruit that we were able to find. I want to tell you about the current members of the board to give a contrast. So the current chair is Michael Summers, who many members of this body may recall was a member of the House of Delegates and served on the Elections Subcommittee. He's from Prince George's County. The vice chair and former chair is a Republican. He is a faith leader, executive pastor at Redemption City Church in Baltimore, has worked in corporate and estate marketing for elections for 8 years. He was on the Anne Arundel County Board of Elections and 4 years served as president. I have found him as chair during the Hogan administration. I found him to be supremely collaborative, accessible as he chaired the Board of Elections. And in my view, his leadership is part of why our elections have been so smoothly run, with thanks to obviously our local boards of election and our state board of election staff. But from the board perspective, his leadership has been invaluable. The third member of the state board is someone this body knows well and enthusiastically supported just recently through the executive nominations process. He was late President Miller's chief of staff. Prior to that, he was deputy chief of staff. He served as chief of staff to this president and worked well with all 47 members, regardless of party. In my opinion, and I suspect that everyone in this body would agree, he was, again, thoughtful, collaborative, responsive, diligent, all the things we would want in a chief of staff, as our current chief of staff is, Mr. President, and what we would want in the really important job at the State Board of Elections. The next member has been in the leadership of the League of Women Voters. Again, I'm sure everyone listening is aware that the League of Women Voters is scrupulously nonpartisan and just provides factual information. They do the voter guide. They work with people of both parties. And this member of our State Board of Elections, again, thoughtful, diligent, and does her homework before speaking. There is a recess appointment that has already been announced, and that person has been the chair of the Montgomery County Board of Elections during the last administration, chaired, worked very closely with both parties, and to be clear, is an active Republican. The reason why he did not come before executive nominations yet is because he's on the ballot right now to be a delegate to the Republican National Convention for Nikki Haley, and so therefore he is ineligible to serve on the State Board of Elections while he's on the ballot. But he has served in private law practice. He worked as a district attorney, has run for office and all that. So he will be a recess appointment. Unfortunately, when he takes office, as those on executive nominations know, when he takes office, that will result in the departure of the person that I described before, the former chair, who is now vice chair. And that's a loss for the state board. We will lose that experience. Excuse me. So I'm going to wrap up. There are 2 pending lawsuits that have been brought against our State Board of Elections. We don't know who all of the plaintiffs are, and I can say that this nominee did a much better job of scrubbing her social media pages than some of the other nominees. It was hard to get a lot of information. It is unknown to what degree this person, and I am not accusing because I don't have the data, but I'm saying that we don't have the data and cannot get the data. I worry about confidentiality. I worry about partisanship, extreme partisanship, and stories that I heard are about this nominee going into precincts to polling places on election day, touching things, interfering with the judge's work, and doing so with the imprimatur of being a Howard County Board of Elections member. I have spoken to a number of Howard County election people, Republicans. Again, I've heard a lot of stories. The Maryland Republican Party has sent us several nominees who have all proven to be inappropriate to be on the Board of Elections. One was rejected before it even went to the Executive Nominations Committee. The governor refused to put his name forward because of criminal challenges. The second one, the Executive Nominations, rejected. And the third one resigned after being arrested by the FBI for participating in the insurrection on January 6th. These were the last 3 nominations by the Republican Party before this one. I think we need smart, thoughtful, collaborative Republicans with experience and a passion for democracy that is fair, transparent, accurate, and inclusive. I'll be voting no, and I urge you to join me in considering a red vote. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Senator. Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. And respectfully, I know my colleague from Montgomery County has done an extensive amount of work in vetting these. The appointments to the State Board of Elections has been under great scrutiny, especially given last year's event. The governor, at the recommendation of the State Central Committee, has put this name forward, stand behind it. Out of the 19 members that are on the Executive Nominations Committee, we've considered all of the information that we've had, and I think there was 3 dissenting votes. I would ask the body to consent to the nomination to the State Board of Elections for nominee number 19.
All right, thank you, Senator. Any further, recognizing the minority whip?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm rising in support of the nominee. And we just heard a long speech with a lot of information in it. I think it's important to note, number one, this is a party nominee, and that doesn't automatically give approval. But I think it's important to know that we certainly had concerns about, you know, the nominee last year that we all voted for. None of us knew, including the people who put his name up in the governor's office, and none of us knew about the situation, obviously, before it came out. The minority leader and I and the state party worked, you know, collaboratively in this process to identify and to work on making sure we had a well-qualified person who also shares the values that Republican Party folks feel about the importance of election security. And we have somebody who served 2 terms on the Howard County State Board. And despite some of what I've heard today, there hasn't been any documented cases of any sort of malfeasance or difficulty. Bringing up whether someone's been involved in a lawsuit that has nothing to do with elections prior, really, I don't think is, in my opinion, relevant. We're not talking about a board that's overseeing any of those kind of subjects. This person is a good person. Somebody I've known for many years. And I think if you were in the hearing, you consider her answers to the questions that she was asked. Had asked extensive questions. I think her answers were very solid. And I think the body should be careful about the idea that if someone expresses strong opinions about things dealing with election processes, that is in some way the same as, you know, January 6th or whatever. And I feel that sometimes gets thrown out a little bit quickly, that if you question, hey, we should have maybe had a little better security for this process, or, hey, the first election in 2020 where we had widespread mail ballots, there were people who internally in boards of elections that were like, you know, I think our process needs some work. That's appropriate for someone who's on a board of elections. This person is qualified, and there's someone who has a lot of experience in the community, active in their community. And I think they deserve a green vote and approval, and they will work, I'm confident, work collaboratively with the State Board of Elections, because we understand, though we have party nominees, it is not to be partisan when you're on the Board of Elections. We're working for transparency, openness, and efficient and effective governing of our elections. So, Mr. President, I would ask the body for the courtesy of supporting the Republican nominee for the Board of Elections.
All right, thank you, Senator. Question remains on nominee number 19, recognizing the senator from Prince George's and Anne Arundel.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I serve on the Executive Nominations Committee, and I was there for the hearing. And I have to say that I agree with the minority leader on 2 points. One is that the nominee was asked tough questions and gave very direct, coherent, and responsive answers. That's number one. Number two is one of the great things about our country is we have 2 parties. And our parties are different from each other in many ways. Different interests, different values, common commitment to our country. But we want real Republicans on the Republican seats, and we want real Democrats in the Democratic seats. And I think that's essentially what we have here, and therefore I'm very comfortable voting for confirmation.
Thank you, Senator. Any further discussion on the nominee? Any further discussion? Recognize the senator from District 12 on the nominee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have heard from many folks in Howard County, including people who've had to work with her on the Howard County Board of Elections. And I think many of the issues that have been brought up have raised concerns to me about judgment and temperament as well. And so I do want to acknowledge all the individuals that had reached out locally about the actions and past communications that she's had. And because of those concerns, because of those local concerns have been brought up by many individuals who've worked closely with her, I am a no vote on this nominee, and I do echo some of the concerns that the vice chair had brought up as well. Thank you.
All right. Question remains on nominee number 19. Is there any further discussion? If not, the question is, will the Senate advise and consent? The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 32 votes in the affirmative, the Senate advises and consents affirmatively to nominee number 19. Senator from Montgomery County?
Yeah, Mr. President, I know we took the rest on report number 6, consent calendar. I was wondering if we could reconsider the vote in which it was taken for the purpose of separating one out.
On the prior
Correct.
report. Do we want to take up? Okay, let's do that. So just to clarify, we are moving to reconsider the vote on the large list of nominees because there was one that we want to separate out.
Correct, and that's S7.
All right, are there any objections to the reconsideration of the vote for the report number 6, the bulk of the names? Without objection, the vote having been reconsidered, it is again before the body, recognizing the senator from Montgomery.
And I would move to approve the nominees on this list.
Does the senator, let's recognize the chair of the committee.
A little eager. Yes, we will move to accept report number 6.
But we would
separate number 7 out.
We would like to separate out number 7. So just double check. We had moved
S7.
S7. So we had moved and passed, but there was a name that we need a member to has a to excuse themselves. So the question is, will the Senate advise and consent on report number 6, not including 6, 19, S7, and S23? Are there any questions as to what the question is? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, nominees on report 6, but for 6, 19, S7, and S23 are advised and consented to affirmatively. Let's take up the next nominee, which, Madam Clerk, I would believe is S7. All right. Question before the body is, will the Senate advise and consent to the nomination of nominee S7 on report number 6? Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, nominee S7 is advised to and consented affirmatively for the executive appointment. We have one additional appointment. All right, the question before the body is, will the Senate advise and consent to the nomination of nominee S23? All right. Okay. Question is on S23. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. All right, with 43 votes in the affirmative, nominee number S23 is advised to and consented affirmatively. All right, I think that does it for executive nomination. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We got through it. It was a lot moving. This was a great year. Well done. Assuming we're done. We assume we're done. Oh, maybe not quite done. Not quite done yet. We do have to do another one for Tuesday. So almost there. Almost there. Almost there. All right. Let's see. Let's take up. Are we ready on the?
Yes, but I also wanted to make an announcement.
Oh, Sarah, may proceed.
Colleagues, if you'll help me join in welcoming the doctor of the day, Dr. Dwayne Taylor. It's good to see you, sir.
Oh,
Thank you
excellent.
for your
Welcome.
help.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Thanks for joining us. All right, let's see if we are ready. Are we ready for the other prior auth issue? Okay. Let's just go to this one. Let's go to the special order. Make sure. This is special order number 68. 68. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 486, Delegate Farr, Residential Property Sales, Contract Disclosures, Superfund Sites. Question is on the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable report.
All right, question is on the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, committee amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Senator from District 4 has an amendment.
Mr. President, I don't think we have the amendment yet from the other side. I apologize.
I thought I was doing an easy one, and
I apologize.
No, it's my fault. No. Senator, want to special order the bill for an hour, 30 minutes?
I've got it. I'll get the language from the delegate to make it happen. My impression was he had already submitted it, but I don't have it.
I see. We can take it up. We could amend it on third reader.
That's fine.
Okay,
That's
that
fine.
might be the easiest.
Let's do that.
Okay, we will make sure that we have it ready for third. All right, so are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 486 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right, let's go to Senate third reading calendar number 81. These are Senate bills on third reading. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 42, Senator Kelly, Vehicle Laws, Horse Riding, Helmet Requirements for Minors.
All right, Senate Bill 42 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 39 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 42, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 932, Senator Elfrith, Maryland Agricultural BMP Prior Environmental Stewardship Program established.
Senate Bill 932 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 932, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. We have some concurrence calendars. This is Senate bills amended in the House, calendar number 1. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 197, Senator Ellis, Residential Service Agencies Reimbursement Personal Assistance Services. Motion to concur with House amendments.
Recognizing the chair of the committee on the amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 197 requires that if a residential service agency wants to be reimbursed by Medicaid for personal assistance services, the personal care providers must be classified as employees. The House amendment simply alters the title. Move to concur.
All right, the chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objections to the motion? Without objection, the House amendments are concurred with, and Senate Bill 197 is again before the body on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 33 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 197, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 212, Chair, Finance Committee, Behavioral Health Advisory Council and Commission on Behavioral Health Care Treatment and Access, alterations.
Recognizing chair of the committee on the House amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 212 is a departmental bill, generally requires the Behavioral Health Advisory Council and the Commission on Behavioral Health Care Treatment and Access to work in conjunction with one another, alters the membership and terms of the council, and requires the Commission to make specified recommendations regarding the integration of somatic and behavioral health services in Medicaid. The House amendments add the Secretary of Aging and a representative of the Maryland States Attorney Association to the Commission. We move to concur.
All right, the chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objection to the motion? Without objection, the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 212 is again before the body on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 212, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 613, Senator Bidle, State Board of Long-Term Care Administrators Requirements for Assisted Living Managers.
Recognizing the chair of the committee on the House amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 613 alters provisions of law that were recently enacted to regulate assisted living program managers by extending the date to July 1, 2026, by which the licensing of assisted living program managers must occur. The House amendment clarifies course requirements for program managers, and we move to concur.
All right, the chair moves that we concur with the House amendments. Any discussion? Any objection to the motion? If not, the motion carries and the House amendments are adopted. Senate Bill 613 is now again before the body on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 613, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, let's go to these Senate bills. If we can get the Senate bills out of here today, that'll be, get them over. Let's go to Education, Energy, and the Environment, report number 44. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 570, Senator Hester, Public Utilities, Thermal Energy Network Systems, Authorization and Estimated Working for Accessible Renewable Maryland Thermal Heat Warmth Act, favorable of 2 amendments.
Recognizing the bill sponsor as the floor leader. Senators, we'll probably do some second readers here for the next 20 minutes or so, just so that you can know that we probably won't have if somebody has to use the facilities or we're going to go on to second readers for a bit. So recognizing the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, as you know, geothermal systems provide an efficient source of energy to heat and cool buildings, and they also minimize electric demand on the grid. This bill is about networked geothermal systems, which are the best opportunity for neighborhood scale shifts to fully electrify heating and cooling. The bill authorizes an electric company, a gas company, or a water company to manage and recover costs associated with the thermal energy network system, subject to the PSC's approval and other specified requirements. It also requires each gas company by July 1st of 2025 to submit 1 or 2 proposals for a pilot system. The PSC may decide on the proposals by December 31st of 2025. The Maryland Energy Administration must coordinate state and federal funding sources to fully cover behind-the-meter costs, and MEA must also coordinate with the Department of Housing and Community Development to provide services or funding for weatherization for all low and moderate income housing in the pilot systems area. There are 2 committee amendments. The first one makes technical changes, and the second one limits the scope of the bill to gas companies serving at least 75,000 customers, authorizes instead of requires gas companies serving less than 75,000 customers to participate, and authorizes instead of requires the PSC to approve a proposal. It also establishes important requirements for the PSC to determine cost effectiveness and addresses cost recovery for permanent and non-permanent programs. It requires reservation and transfer of lesser funds from MEA for appliance installation and adds labor requirements for contractors and subcontractors. I move the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, chair recognizes the minority leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just a quick question for the floor leader, please.
Will the floor leader, Senator may proceed.
Did the amendments do anything about the fiscal note of 2 positions required at $100,000 and $250,000 in consulting fees? Do we know?
We're checking with council. I think it did bring it down.
Okay.
Give me 2 seconds.
Okay, we can get the answer, but can I just move that the bill and the amendment lie over another rule?
It's an excellent question that we were trying to figure out.
Yes.
It would. I think we have 1 day left. Is it?
We have the answer, if that helps.
The senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendment will lie over under the rule. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 682, Senator Hester, limitations on cost recovery by public service campaigns and reports on votes cast at meetings of regional transmission organizations, Utility, Transparency, and Accountability Act, favorable of 2 amendments.
Recognizing the senator from District 9 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, as introduced, this bill would have prohibited electric companies from certain rate recovery procedures. However, as amended, this is a simple transparency bill, which simply requires the utilities to submit a report to the PSC by February 1st of each year, containing information related to votes at the regional transmission organization. There are 2 committee amendments. The first makes technical changes. The second strikes those rate recovery provisions in the bill and narrows the scope to reporting to electric companies. It passed the committee 11-0. I ask to move the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, chair recognizes the minority leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just again, a quick question for you, please.
Senator may proceed.
This has to do with votes that now we're only having that electric companies cast, for instance, with PJM.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. And then there was something that talks about that they then have to provide a brief explanation of how their vote was in the best interest of the public.
That is correct.
Did that get discussed a little bit more, what that really might mean?
I think what we talked about in the committee was that this bill is really about providing transparency, just like we do here in the Senate. So just like our discussions are open at the Senate and our votes are publicly recorded in the subcommittees, in the committees here, they would also be they would be reported underneath this bill.
Right, and I agree with that part, but it's just in how the vote is then explained. I mean, for instance, as you use this example, the General Assembly, we could probably cast votes on the same piece of legislation and have a different explanation on why we thought it may or may not have been in the best interest of the public. So, Mr. President, if I could just take a better look at that and move that the bill and the amendment lie over under the rule.
The senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendment will lie over under the rule. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 689, Senator Smith, Fire Protection Prevention Residential Rental Property Requirements, Melanie Nicole Diaz Fire Safety Act, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize the senator from the 35th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill establishes requirements related to the installation of automatic smoke alarms and notices regarding the lack of automatic sprinkler systems in residential rental high-rise buildings. It also modifies existing provisions related to notification appliances for deaf or hard of hearing individuals. The bill authorizes local governments to grant a property tax credit for specified residential high-rise buildings if the building owner makes fire safety improvements. The bill also establishes the work group to develop fire safety best practices for pre-1974 high-rise buildings. There are two committee amendments. The amendments define high-rise building under the bill and establish requirements related to the installation of automatic smoke detectors and notices that regard the lack of automatic sprinkler systems in residential rental high-rise buildings. And also the second amendment modifies existing provisions related to notification appliances for deaf or hard of hearing individuals and expands those requirements to include deaf-blind individuals. The amendments also alter the composition and duties of the work group. I'd like to move the two committee amendments and ask for adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor Leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 689 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 1034, Senator Carrozza, 911 Specialist Recruitment and Retention Work Group, favorable with two amendments.
Recognizing the senator from the 38th District is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our 911 specialists are facing many of the same challenges that we've seen in law enforcement and fire and EMS. The purpose of this bill is to set up a work group, as we have done with those other areas, with the purpose of coming out with solid recommendations that would be both legislative and non-legislative. So I wanted to give the background on this. This work group would be staffed by both DLS and the Department of Legislative Services and the Maryland Department of Emergency Management. We are going to have an interim report so we could have some recommendations that we could move forward on next session. There are two committee amendments. The first amendment adds co-sponsors and is technical. And the second amendment builds on the work that's been done in the past to have this work group review reports submitted by the Commission to advance next generation 911 across Maryland. And it also requires the examination of workers' comp benefits as part of the review of the work group. So I move for adoption of these two committee amendments and a favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 1034 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. All right, let's go to these cross files, same committee, report number 43. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 397, Delegate Charkoudian, Public Utilities, Thermal Energy Network Systems Authorization and Established Working for Accessible Renewable Maryland Thermal Heat Warmth Act, favorable to amendments.
Recognizing the senator from District 9 is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is a cross-file to Senate Bill 570, which I just discussed. There are two committee amendments which conform the House and the Senate bill. The first amendment is technical, and the second amendment establishes standards for the cost effectiveness. Am I on the right bill? I'm on the wrong bill. Sorry.
So this is the cross file, correct, of the one that we had earlier? Right, okay, so the senator has moved for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Recognize the minority leader.
Again, Mr. President, cross-file one we just laid over, I make a motion that we lay the bill and the amendments under the rule.
The motion is in order. The bill and the amendments will lie over under the rule. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 505, Delegate Charkoudian, Electric Companies, Regional Transmission Organizations, Membership and Report, Utility Transparency and Accountability Act, favorable with two amendments.
Recognizing the senator from District 9.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this bill is a cross-file to Senate Bill 682, which we just discussed. There are two committee amendments that conform the two bills.
Yep. Senator moves to adopt the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you again, Mr. President. Cross-file something we just laid over. Make a motion that we lay the bill and the amendment over under the rule.
Senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendment will lay over under the rule. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 823, Delegate Jacudian, Fire Protection and Prevention Residential Rental Property Requirements, Melanie Nicole Diaz Fire Safety Act, favorable.
Recognizing Senator from the 35th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the cross file of Senate Bill 689, which we just heard a few minutes ago. This does not have amendments. The Senate version, we passed amendments to make it the same as the House version. So I'd like to move for adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 823 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1162, Delegate Rogers, 911 Specialist Recruitment and Retention Work Group, favorable with one amendment.
Recognize the senator from the 38th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is the identical cross-file of SB 1034 that we just heard. There is one committee amendment which conforms the House bill to the Senate bill, and that amendment requires the work group to study workers' comp benefits for 911 specialists as part of the review of the work group. I move the adoption of the one committee amendment and a favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objection? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1162 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1256, Delegate Frazier Hidalgo, Electricity Tariffs, Distributed Energy Resources, Electric Distribution System, Support Services, Distributed Renewable Integration, Vehicle Electrification and Drive Act, favorable.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee.
That's a mouthful. This bill is identical to it's identical cross-file to Senate Bill 959, which passed unanimously out of this body earlier in the session. It requires the Public Service Commission to adopt a transition plan to require each electric company to, number one, transition each customer to a time of use rate by September 1, 2028. PSC must also adopt regulations to establish an expedited process for interconnecting bidirectional electric vehicle systems to the grid. And thirdly, develop a program for each electric company to establish a pilot program or temporary tariff to compensate owners and aggregators of distributed energy resources for electric distribution system support services. Finally, Mr. President, the Public Service Commission may also approve or require an electric company to offer upfront incentives or rebates to customers to acquire and install renewable on-site generating systems. As I said earlier, the bill passed unanimously out of the body. The cross-file did. There are no committee amendments. I'd move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1256 is hereby ordered passed to third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1296, Delegate Wilson, Electricity Offshore Wind Projects, Alterations, favorable with two amendments.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. If you indulge me, this is a pretty significant piece of legislation, and I just want to kind of frame the issue.
Please.
I don't know, if the bill's going to be laid off or not. But last year, this body passed the Power Act, where we set up some really ambitious goals of 8,500 megawatts of offshore wind power by 2031 in our state, essentially reclaiming our leadership position in the East Coast. We also sending a signal to the feds who continue the process of determining leasing areas. There's actually further auctions this summer. And so in addition to our need for power, generation capacity, preparing our grid for the 21st century, it's more important than ever. The environmental benefits of continue to move away from fossil fuel renewable energy. We also last session, if you recall, in the Power Act outlined on this floor the economic benefits for our state at Sparrows Point, elsewhere. I recall the senator from the 6th District made a powerful speech, because the bill passed on a bipartisan basis, about how that part of our state can be a supply chain hub for the entire East Coast. I'd be remiss to point out that as a result of what happened this past week, I think this issue of economic development in that region is more important than ever. We are also one of 32 workforce training programs in the entire nation to get United States Department of Commerce dollars for manufacturing in the offshore wind space. So by way of background, the Public Service Commission required, and I back on economic development, under the arrangements, the Public Service Commission required the two wind companies who got approved for wind projects in a competitive bidding process, which yielded 4 projects to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in and around Sparrows Point in manufacturing and port upgrades, including port infrastructure, steel fabrication, turbine manufacturing. So what happened this past January was there were 2 rounds of offshore wind projects that were approved by the Public Service Commission. 2 developers got approved for 4 projects for a total of 2,000 megawatts of power. What's happened, we had the pandemic, we had supply chain issues, inflation, interest rate environment, and one of the offshore wind developers in January of 2024 withdrew from the PSC orders approving basically 2 projects that totaled 900 megawatts out of that 2,000 megawatts that had been approved. The other bidder, successful one, continues to move forward with final federal approval expected later this year. Construction might begin as early as 2025 and 2026. So, Mr. President, with all that background, all this bill does, House Bill 1296 does, it allows for a revised round 1, round 2, round of revised projects to basically try to get us back. We had 2,000 megawatts approved, now we're down to 1,100. This will try to get us back to about 500 or so megawatts out of that 900 of megawatts of lost capacity because of the withdrawal of the one offshore wind developer. And that's basically what we're trying to do. They can come back with some revised schedules, projects, et cetera, et cetera. That process will begin on June 1 of 2024. I want to emphasize that all the existing ratepayer protections, including the firm rate caps we have in the space, will remain on these new solicitations. There should not be any additional ratepayer impact over what we passed last year. And I also have to make this point very important. There are no ratepayer dollars that go into any of this until we actually have generation capacity and electricity being sold to Marylanders. So if you hear at some point in this debate here or later about taxpayer money, nothing happens until such time as offshore wind is in place and electricity is being sold into our state. We did actually, in the committee, added a couple of, I think, important amendments. These projects cannot be approved unless there are commitments for in-state expenditures and investments into the local supply chain, similar to what was in place with the offshore wind developer that withdrew. We want to make sure that the economic development process and projects and potential are maintained. The PSC has to develop a plan to achieve what we sought out last year with the assistance of various state entities, develop a plan for achieving a total of 8,500 megawatts of offshore wind energy by 2031. It's been a report on the plan to the General Assembly by January 1st of 2025. And with that, Mr. President, there are 2 committee amendments. I'll just reiterate the first amendment is technical. Amendment number 2 does add local supply chain requirements for approved orders, requires access to confidential information by the Maryland Energy Administration subject to a confidentiality agreement, requires a second procurement to be issued by December 31st, 2025, specifies the terms of the procurement to include terms that will enable the project to have certainty of payment, and modifies requirements for a plan conducted by the Public Service Commission on the state's offshore wind capacity goals. I alluded to that a little earlier. And with that, Mr. President, I'd move the favorable committee report and the 2 committee, the favorable committee report and the 2 committee amendments, Mr. President.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. Recognize the minority leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I just move that the bill and amendment lie over under the rule.
All right, Senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendment will lie over under the rule. That does it for that calendar. Let's go to budget and tax. We'll go to the Senate bill calendar first, which is report number 26. All right, clerk, read the first bill.
Senate Bill 101, Senator McCray, University of Baltimore, Schaefer Center for Public Policy, funding favorable with 3 amendments.
Recognizing the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 101 as amended. requires the governor for fiscal 2025 through 2027 to include in the annual budget bill an appropriation of $1.5 million to the Schaefer Center for Public Policy at the University of Baltimore. Mr. President, there are 3 amendments. This is the first. The first is technical. The second alters the years and the amount of the governor is required for the appropriation. The third amendment alters the staffing requirements for the Apprenticeship 2030 Commission to the center. Move adoption, Mr. President, if we can move adoption of the amendments in a favorable committee report with special order.
All right. The Center has moved to adopt the 3 committee amendments in the favorable committee report. Just one moment, we're missing something in the bill file. Okay, we have those. The Center has moved to special order the bill
For a technical amendment.
for 15 minutes? 15 minutes. Let's try for 15 minutes. We'll see where we are.
We'll try for 15 minutes, Mr. President.
All right. Any objections to the special order? Without objection, the bill will be special ordered for 15 minutes. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 1186, Howard County Senators, Howard County Task Force to study revenue options for school capital needs, Howard County 18-24, favorable with 1 amendment.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Local bill, the title says it all. Howard County Task Force to study revenue options for capital needs. There's 1 amendment that alters the due date and recipients of the report. Move adoption of the amendment and the favorable report.
All right, floor leader moves for the adoption of the 1 committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 1 committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 1186 is hereby ordered passed for 3rd reading. Let's go to this monstrous budget and tax report number 25. Whew. This is a heck of a report. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 2, Delegate Boyce, Property Taxes Authority of Counties to establish a subclass and set a special rate for vacant and abandoned property, favorable with 1 amendment.
Recognize the senator from the 45th as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 2, as amended, is identical to Senate Bill 138 that passed this chamber. This bill authorizes Baltimore City and the respective county governments to establish by law a subclass of real property consisting of vacant lots or improved property cited. Committee amendments, there is 1 amendment that requires local government entities that exercise this authority to report to the respective General Assembly. Move adoption of the amendment in the favorable committee report, Mr. President.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 1 committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 1 amendment is adopted. Question on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 2 is hereby ordered passed for 3rd reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 35, Chair Ways and Means Committee, Property Tax Submission of Building Permits to Supervisor of Assessments, Estimated Construction Cost, favorable.
Recognize the senator from the 45th.
Mr. President, House Bill 35 requires county permit officers to include the estimated cost of the construction when submitting a copy of the building permit to ESTAT. There are no committee amendments. Move adoption of the favorable committee report, Mr. President.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 35 is hereby ordered passed for 3rd reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 54, Delegate Atterbury, Property Tax Transfer to Heir or Legatee Payment Plans, favorable with 1 amendment.
Recognize the senator from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 54 requires the state tax sale ombudsman to contract with a vendor to operate an installation payment program available to any homeowner for payment of property taxes, whether in advance, currently due, or in arrears. The bill also authorizes counties and municipalities to establish installment payment programs for taxes in arrears on any residential property. Finally, the bill provides exemptions from the requirement that all property tax assessments and other charges due on the property be paid prior to a transfer if the heir, legatee, or grantee enters into a payment plan. There were no committee amendments. I'm sorry, there was 1 committee amendment to add a sponsor to the bill. Move adoption of the amendment and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 1 committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 1 committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 54 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 63, Delegate Pruski, property tax credit for dwelling house of disabled veterans, alterations favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize the senator from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 63, as amended, is the exact match to Senate Bill 6, which passed the Senate unanimously. It expands the eligibility criteria for local option property tax credit for the dwelling house of specified disabled veterans to include individuals who've been declared to have a non-permanent service-connected disability of 100%. Committee amendments, there were 2. The first was technical. The second allows the local governing body to choose whether to expand such a credit. Move adoption of the amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 63 is ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 165, Delegate J. Lewis, local government annual audit reporting requirements, alterations favorable with 1 amendment.
165. Oh, recognizing the senator from Prince George's as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 165 as amended is substantially identical to Senate Bill 747 that passed the Senate unanimously. This bill imposes a financial penalty through the reduction of 20% of state funding for local highway user revenues and disparity grants if a local government fails to submit required audited financial reports within 2 calendar years after the deadline. The bill applies prospectively beginning with the fiscal year 2024 audits. Committee amendments, there's 1 amendment that returns the bill to the Senate posture and adds a clarifying amendment specifying that any withheld funds be returned to the proper fund. Move the adoption of the amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 1 committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 1 committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 165 is hereby ordered printed, passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 228, Chair, Environment and Transportation Committee, Natural Resources, Maryland State Parks, Funds, and Plan alterations favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing the senator from the 30th District as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 228, as amended, will be identical to Senate Bill 259 as it passed the Senate earlier this season. Reminder, it's a departmental bill dealing with the Department of Natural Resources spending of funds allocated under the 2022 Great Maryland Outdoors Act. The bill does a number of things. It extends the deadline by which DNR must spend the certain funds for the Park System Critical Maintenance Fund and expands the purposes of authorized uses for the Park System Capital Improvements and Acquisition Fund. It also extends the deadline for DNR to establish and publish its comprehensive long-range strategic plan for the state park system just by 1 year, so we should now get that by December 1st, 2024. Mr. President, there are 2 committee amendments. The first makes technical changes, and the second conforms the House bill to the Senate bill and authorizes DNR to expend up to $400,000 in projects out of that very specific fund without prior approval from the Department of General Services. This is to get the money out the door as quickly as possible, which was the original purpose of the fund itself. I move the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 228 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 376, Prince George's County Delegation, study on the feasibility of relocating the Prince George's County Public School System headquarters. Favorable with 1 amendment.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the Committee is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a local bill. As the chair said about another bill earlier, the title says it all. There's a technical amendment, which I move the amendment and the favorable report.
All right, floor leader moves for the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 376 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 451, the Speaker, Tax Assistance for Low-Income Marylanders Funding, favorable.
Recognizing the senator from Montgomery County is the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 451 is nearly identical to Senate Bill 1142 that passed this chamber unanimously. What this bill does is it reinstates the low-income tax clinic bill that was accidentally stricken from the law. It also modifies the appropriation for the low-income tax clinics, and it also modifies the appropriation of creating asset savings and hope campaign. And also requires some local grants to be distributed. There are no committee amendments. I'd move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 451 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 490, Delegate D. Jones, Income Tax Subtraction Modification for Donations to Diaper Banks and Other Charitable Entities, Sunset Extension, favorable.
Recognizing the senator from Montgomery County is the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. House Bill 490 is actually started with Senator George Edwards a couple years ago, and this just is extending the sunset for this program. Actually, it eliminates the sunset for this program until 2026, so I would move the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 490 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 666, Delegate Shaddy, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, State Supplement, favorable.
Recognizing the senator from the 45th is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 666 is the cross-file to Senate Bill 35. It lowers the age for SNAP benefits from 62 to 60, and it makes it $50 as the receivable opportunity for the SNAP benefits. No, there are no committee amendments. Please move adoption of the committee report. Thank you.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 666 is hereby ordered passed to third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 688, Delegate Barnes, Maryland Historical Trust, Historical and Cultural Museum Assistance Program, funding, favorable.
So Chair, moving a special order of the bill. Just kidding. Recognize the chair as the floor leader.
Not considering it's mine on the other side. This is the cross-filed of Senate Bill 616, which passed unanimously in the Senate. It authorizes the governor to include money into basically our museum program. There are no amendments. Move adoption of favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 688 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 765, Delegate Wells, Property Tax Credit for Hotel or Residential Development Projects, favorable.
Recognize the senator from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, House Bill 765, while it's not listed as a direct cross-file, is substantially identical to Senate Bill 321 that we passed unanimously out of this body. The bill authorizes local governments to grant a property tax credit against the county or municipality property tax imposed on real properties that is used for specified hotel or residential development projects. There are no amendments. Move adoption of the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 765 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 780, Delegate Embry, Competitive Sealed Proposals, Security Contracts, favorable.
Recognizing senator from District 11 as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. House Bill 780 creates a competitive sealed proposal procurement method. It says that is the preferred method to solicit security services if the contract has a value greater than $1 million. And the bill has a delayed effective date of July 1, 2025. There are no committee amendments. I move the adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 780 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 933, Delegate Feldmark, Behavioral Health Crisis Response Services 988, Trust Fund Fees, favorable.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 933 is a matching cross-file with Senate Bill 974, which passed the Senate already this year. This is basically just the ongoing long-term funding mechanism for our 988 behavioral health crisis line. Move adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 933 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1357, Howard County Delegation, Howard County Payment in lieu of Taxes Agreements, Moderate Income Housing, favorable.
Recognize the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a local bill authorizing Howard County to exempt real property belonging to the owners of specified moderate income housing developments if the owner and the county enter into specified payment in lieu of taxes agreements. There are no amendments. Move adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1357 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1440, Howard County Delegation, Howard County Public Schools, Differences in Capital Budget Proposals, favorable.
Recognize the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 1440 requires a report to be posted on the website when there's a difference between the capital budget and the CIP that is proposed versus what is approved. Report most detailed differences and rationale for differences. There are no amendments. Move adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. On the report, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1440 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 1450, Howard County Delegation, Howard County Task Force to study revenue options for school capital needs, favorable.
Recognize the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the same bill that we just saw a second ago. It's identical to Senate Bill 1186 and establishes this task force to study school construction.
All right.
Move adoption.
Chair moves for the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, House Bill 1450 is hereby ordered passed for third reading. All right, let's go to prior auth. Whoop. Is there one more? No. Yes, we do have a consent. That's right. This is calendar number 18. Clerk will read the calendar.
Report of the Committee on Budget and Taxation, report number 24, consent calendar number 18.
All right, recognizing the chair of the committee on the calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President. These are House bills on this consent calendar that are identical cross files and the bills that passed the Senate unanimously. Move adoption.
All right, the chair moves for the adoption of the favorable report for House bills on consent calendar number 18. Are there any bills that senators wish to separate and consider independently? If not, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee reports for House bills on consent calendar 18 are adopted, and the bills are ordered passed to third reading. Let's go to the prior authorization. Madam Clerk, if you could read the bill.
Senate Bill 966, Senator Zucker, prior authorization of state debt alterations. The bill is on second reading and open to amendment.
All right, recognizing the minority whip.
Mr. President, it's not often that I rise on the floor to say that I was wrong, but I was mistakenly reading the wrong, misread the bill a little bit. Haven't been in the prior auth bill with anything of mine before, so I apologize, but we're all good. So thank you, and thank you to the outstanding capital subcommittee chairman who always works well with us. So
excellent.
Apologies for the delay.
No worries, no worries. As our wonderful chief of staff says, steady is smooth and smooth is speedy. So something along those lines. That doesn't make any sense. I messed it up. Steady is smooth. What is it? No. Doing real work. All right. Any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 966 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. All right, let's go to, how are we looking? If we could ring the bells and do a quorum call.
Mr. President,
Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. That's it, there it goes. Haste makes waste, there it is. Excellent. All right, has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 43 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Let's get through the ones that are amended first. So we're going to start on calendar number 13, third reading calendar 13. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 39, Delegate R. Lewis, Residential Service Agencies Reimbursement Personal Assistance Services Home Care Workers' Rights Act of 2024.
House Bill 39 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 33 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 39, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 52, Delegate Stewart, State Employees Parental Bereavement Leave.
House Bill 52 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 52, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 143, Delegate Foley, Condominium Sale of Contracts, Asbestos Disclosure.
House Bill 143 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 143, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 159, Delegate Corman, Common Ownership Communities, Electric Vehicle Recharging Equipment Act of 2024.
House Bill 159 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 37 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 159, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 161, Chair, Environment and Transportation Committee, Vehicle Laws, Driver's License, Learner Instruction Permits, and Identification Cards.
House Bill 161 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 161, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 216, Delegate Charcudian, Condominiums, Common Elements, Clean Energy Equipment.
House Bill 216 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 36 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 216, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 238, Chair, Economic Matters Committee, Public Health, Clean Indoor Act, revisions.
House Bill 238 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 34 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 238, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, let's go to calendar 14. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 589, Dorchester County Delegation, Dorchester County Applicants Polygraph Examination.
House Bill 589 is on third reading for final passage. Recognizing the senator from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a small technical amendment.
Will pages please collect and distribute the senator's amendment? All right, Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. This just puts this in the same posture as everywhere else in the code. Their title is 911 Specialist. I Move adoption of the technical amendment.
All right, the senator moves the amendment. Let's hear from the floor, leader.
This is a friendly amendment and support the amendment.
All right, no issues from the committee. Any objections from the floor? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. House Bill 589 is again before the body on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 589, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 601, Delegate Lehman, street racing and exhibition driving prohibited acts, enforcement and penalties.
House Bill 601 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 601, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 785, Delegate D. Jones, Freedom to Read Act.
House Bill 785 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 34 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 785, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 874, Delegate Pena Melnick, State Board of Long-Term Care Administrators, requirements for assisted living managers.
House Bill 874 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 874, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 906, Delegate Heinbaugh, Garrett County Sheriff's Salary Alteration.
House Bill 906 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 906, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 934, Delegate Hutchinson, State Board of Physicians, performance of X-ray duties without a license.
House Bill 934 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 934, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 1155, Delegate Stewart, hospitals opioid overdose and opioid-related emergency medical conditions treatment.
House Bill 1155 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1155, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. We have a consent calendar. This is consent calendar number 9. Clerk will read the calendar.
third reading House Bill calendar number 15, consent calendar number 9.
All right, Senators, these are House bills on third reading for final passage coming out of the Judicial Proceedings Committee. Are there any bills that Senators would like to separate out? Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from the 38th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to separate out HB 102, please.
102 separately. 102 will be removed. Any further?
Oh, the reason,
No, 102.
HB 102, it's the delegate's first bill.
Yep. The motorcycles passenger restrictions. Interesting. It's correct on the paper again.
I'm sorry, is it 103?
No?
So it's, I had HB 102, but. Okay.
These are out of judicial proceedings.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's the
Let's do
motor
this.
vehicles, motorcycles, passenger restriction.
Right, yeah, that is the calendar, and it's correct on the board, it's
If
just
it's correct on the
linking the wrong
calendar?
thing,
Okay.
so let's not,
Thank you.
yeah, let's hold it, we'll pull this back for a minute, we'll see what's going on there. We'll move, it's been our favorite move of the day today. We're gonna just pause for a second, because for some reason it's not coming up. Let's see if we have, this is another consent calendar. We'll try this one again. This is report number 12, consent number 8. Clerk will read the calendar.
Third reading House Bill, calendar number 12, consent calendar number 8.
All right. Looks like it begins with House Bill 13. Whoop. I see it here. It's linked incorrectly. Let's go to third reading calendar number 11. Let's try that one. Let's see. Sometimes bills get lost, you know.
All right, we're ready.
Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 497, Delegate Hornberger, hunting non-resident Sika deer stamp fee alteration.
All right, House Bill 497 is on third reading for final passage.
Mr. President.
Recognize the senator from the 37th District.
I've got an amendment.
The senator has an amendment. Pages will collect and distribute the senator's amendment.
I don't know, man. I don't feel great, so.
Mr. President, while they're passing out the amendment, will be okay to speak on the amendment to keep things moving, or you want me to wait?
I just want to wait to make sure that we have it on the system. We've had, just want to make sure they're all aligned. Okay, that's it. Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think, colleagues, you'll remember the discussion we had about this stamp and the cost of the stamp. And, you know, a lot of discussion came up about Dorchester County, which I represent. It's in District 37. I was quiet and I listened and was taking a lot of that in. That bill moved, the Senate bill moved. I voted against that Senate bill. Now we have the House bill before us. And with this House bill, I've devised an amendment that would enable me to be able to support this legislation. Wild Sika deer reside primarily, that's just primarily in Dorchester County, but can also be found in parts of Caroline, Worcester, Somerset, and Wacomico counties. Sika deer are one of the only non-native invasive species regulated as a protected game mammal nationwide. Brian Ehler, deer project manager at the time for the Department of Natural Resources, stated to Outdoor Magazine, "We have thousands of acres of public land in Maryland that are loaded with Sika deer. Some hunters come from out of state to hunt them, but it's definitely an underutilized resource. The Taylor's Island and Fishing Bay wildlife management areas, for example, have more than 25,000 acres of public hunting and have good populations of Sika deer. As DNR purchases more and more land in our district and District 37 and other places, hunters have noticed reduced access, that's reduced access to hunting tracks. They're not able to get out and hunt these Sika deer. And farmers have experienced increasing and extreme crop damage from Sika deer. These deer in large herds can devastate an entire field. Some farmers have lost upwards of $30,000 per farm. I know of one particular farmer who has spent over $20,000 to hire the U.S. Fish and Wildlife to come in and try to manage their Sika deer herd. That's an individual, it's a small business that's trying to survive. Also, in the practice of farming, when these herds of deer go onto farmland and they damage farmland, the farmers treat that with more nutrients. It's a best management practice to control the Sika deer herd. Sika deer have been sought after as hunting trophies by out-of-state hunters who travel the country by hunting big game mammals. Maryland is one of the only places they can hunt wild Sika deer, and this stamp will more accurately value the cost of that opportunity. That's a cost. Also count cost to the farmers, and it's a cost to our local governments. The local government, Dorchester County, doesn't have a budget to create access to these hunting tracks. It's tidal land, a lot of times it's underwater. They don't have a budget. Dorchester County has more county road than any other county in the state of Maryland. There are major arteries in Dorchester County where they can't even plow the roads. The revenue from the Sitka stamp should be used by DNR in the counties impacted by this invasive species for management efforts and to increase hunting access and infrastructure, including trails, maintenance, increased access, and parking lots to take pressure off the farmers who are detrimentally impacted by Sitka deer. That last part, parking lots, colleagues, in some parts of Dorchester County during Sitka deer season, there isn't a shoulder in the road, it's a ditch. And these cars will have to park in areas, and oftentimes they'll be in the roadway. So in thinking about the bill and what the stamp would do, we've devised an amendment that would direct the Department of Natural Resources to use the funds from this stamp in counties where Sitka deer are harvested for including abating crop damage, enhancing hunting opportunities and infrastructure improvements, and supporting venison donation programs. This amendment for that county, Dorchester County, would make this program a successful and beneficial program. And I appreciate your indulgence, and I would urge a favorable vote for the amendment. Thank you.
All right, Senator has moved the amendment. Let's hear from the senator from the 30th District on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Question for the maker of the amendment, if you would yield.
Question to the maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Senator, and greatly appreciate where you're coming from with this amendment. And I can only speak to this based on the work that we did last year on hunting generally and increasing the fees to then increase access to hunting and some of the programs you list in this amendment. Could you speak, though, because the fees collected under this stamp would then go towards the pot of money that we also receive federal funds for that have some pretty significant restrictions around the use of those federal funds? Can you speak to how this amendment would play with that or not?
Yeah, that would affect those federal funds for this stamp. However, the stamp is for Sitka deer. Sitka deer is not, you can only hunt them in Dorchester County. I mean, there's some Sitka deer in Wacomico County. I've listed the counties, but as far as getting the revenues to the counties that are affected, they would be willing to sacrifice that to ensure that the investment in management practices are actually going to the counties that are being affected by Sitka deer. So in other words, to take the Sitka deer stamp money and use it on a statewide basis, that money's not being applied properly right now in these districts. So to me, it would be more beneficial to ensure that the investment in managing the herd is going where it should be directed.
I can't disagree with the intention here. I'm just, as an appropriator, concerned about sacrificing federal matching dollars. And when I say match, federal funding is 3-to-1 here, so it's significant funding on the table. Mr. President, I'm concerned that this amendment might in some way sacrifice some federal funding that the state should be entitled to. While I appreciate the intention, and I think this is a conversation to have with DNR about how to focus some of the funds generated here, I'm not sure how putting this in law would affect those federal matching funds, and so I'm resistant to this amendment. Thank you.
All right, Senator from District 9.
Thank you, Mr. President. I mean, colleagues, the debate that you just heard is accurate. This would indeed sacrifice, 3 times the federal funding for the stamp. So I'd urge the body to reject the amendment, and I would encourage the senator. In fact, the department can work directly with your county, and so I would encourage you to write a letter to them and just ask for them to help you with the support for the deer in your area.
Yeah, well, and to clarify also, the only funds that would be jeopardized would be if the department were to take the revenues and use them. I think the venison donation is the one portion of this that would jeopardize those funds. So if the department didn't use those funds for venison donation, the 3-to-1 would not be jeopardized at all. And this is just a portion of the general revenue that comes in to hit that 3-to-1 match with the federal for the federal dollars. I can understand on a statewide basis why would you jeopardize 3-to-1. However, on a local basis, if you look at these wildlife management areas and what has not been done in our district, which holds a a large number of acres of the wildlife management areas, there is a general concern about what's going to happen in the future, because we look at the past and they haven't been managed well. And if we're going to expand hunting, how are the locals supposed to accommodate this? And especially, these small businesses. We've had a lot of discussions about deer management. Well, Sitka deer in particular, I've got videos on my phone of farmers that have a field. They've got tens of thousands of dollars invested in the field, and every night at 11:30, there's between 150 and 300 Sitka deer just devouring the field. So it's a very serious issue for a lot of folks in our district. I appreciate everybody's attention.
All right. Question remains on the amendment. Here, Minority Whip.
Mr. President, could I ask the maker of the amendment a question?
Will the maker of the amendment yield? Senator may proceed.
If the maker of the amendment would yield, thank you. Can I ask a question? This whole bill deals with Sitka deer. Are there any Sitka deer west of the Chesapeake Bay? An appreciable number. There might be a random one, but is there any real population of Sitka deer west of the Chesapeake Bay?
There are no Sitka deer on the western shore at this time that I'm aware of.
Are there any Sitka deer in Cecil County or Kent County?
There are no Sitka deer that I'm aware of in anything north of Caroline County, if you're geographically inclined. Basically, there's an angle, if you follow Dorchester, Caroline, south is where they're located.
And there might be some. So basically, the entire population of Sitka deer in the state reside in in the maker of the amendment senatorial district. Is that correct? Or perhaps a few in Senate District 38?
Correct. 37 and 38. Does
the amendment, we've had kind of back and forth on endangering 3-to-1 match, which we all agree, of course, we wouldn't want to endanger a 3-to-1 federal match. The contention of the amendment, Mr. President, as I understand it, if the maker of the amendment could confirm the amendment does not endanger a 3-to-1 match?
Only if the funds are used for a venison donation. Only if the funds are used for venison donation.
It's fair to assume that the people involved in both appropriating and also then administering the funds at the local level would be aware of that, and so would be able to use other funds for the venison donation.
Correct.
Because they would be aware of this amendment and they would be aware of the debate and discussion we've had. Okay. Mr. President, I got to tell you, when we have a problem that's affecting one specific area of the state and the senator from that district is asking for courtesy for a program that we're raising a fee for to deal with a very specific problem that's wreaking havoc on one of the bread baskets and I guess chicken baskets of our entire state and indeed of the Eastern Seaboard, I think it would be wise for us to support his amendment. I would ask for a roll call vote because this is asking for courtesy. And again, if it endangered the 3-to-1 match, I would understand, but I'm believing that the senator's done his research that it does not. And so, Mr. President, I would ask the body to support and give local courtesy for the senator for District 37 and support this amendment.
All right, thank you, Senator. Recognize the senator from Montgomery County.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. With the floor leader yield for a quick question. So my understanding is that it does jeopardize federal funds for the venison donation program.
Yes, for the venison donation, if the money's spent on venison donation.
Well, it looks like it is, right? How much is being spent? 92,000 state money?
No. At one time, Maryland had a robust program, Hunters Feeding the Hungry, and I forget, it was 2014. It was the year I came into the legislature. It takes about $125,000 from the state to fully fund our venison donation program. Back in 2014, it's probably gone up now with inflation. However, there was a review of Maryland's program, and the Federal Department of Interior determined that money could not be used for venison donation because of the way that it was spent. So since then, Maryland has not put money into the venison donation program, so we're not funding that right now. What the amendment says is that the funds can be used for management in the counties where Sitka deer are harvested, including abating crop damage. In that regard, so you have farmers, we have a number of different tools and things that we do to try to manage Sitka deers in places we call hotspots. I've got some pictures that I could show the body of entire, 150-acre fields that are just dirt, that have been planted and tilled and everything else. And then the amendment also allows for the use of funds to enhance hunting opportunities, infrastructure improvement. And what that really means are these parking areas and these roads and things like that. I know in Dorchester County we've had a number of issues with areas, and we go to the Department of Natural Resources to get them to come in and do this work, to build out these parking areas, to fill in places where people can get and hunt. They go in the marsh and come out of the marsh, and they've done some of the work, but they haven't done enough. And it's a problem right now. So we're going to take a stamp and double the cost of the stamp, and we're going to promote sick of deer, and we want folks to come over and participate in this because of all the great things that come along with that. But the county is being stuck with paying for the tab, including trash collection, which is a significant thing. And then thirdly, it does include venison donation. That is in there also, because that is a best management practice as far as deer. It's a best management practice for managing deer herd.
All right.
Thank you.
On the amendment, any senators who have not yet spoken wish to speak? If not, recognize the senator from District 9, the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I mean, colleagues, anything that has to do with damage mitigation or venison donation is ineligible for the federal match. Therefore, we'll be leaving 3 times the money on the table. I'd also like to remind the body that this is a tax on non-residents, so it's people from outside the county. In the meantime, we have DNR and the Department of Agriculture working together on a hunting program. So you could have this joint program come to your county along with DNR to specifically hunt Sika deer. Using hunters and farmers and bringing them together. Finally, I'd just like to remind the body that we have a tax credit for venison donation, which we actually increased this year with the good senator from the capital city. So I strongly suggest that we vote down this amendment. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. On the amendment, any further discussion? If not, Senator requested a roll call. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote?
Mr. President,
Yes,
in
Chair
explaining my vote, thank you, and I really do appreciate the intention of the maker of the amendment, and I pledge to co-sign a letter with you to DNR requesting that some of the funds go to the eligible programs listed in the amendment. I'm just, again, as an appropriator, concerned for the federal match this amendment could sacrifice, but thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Any further senators wish to explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 31 votes in the negative, the senator's amendment fails. Are there any further amendments? If not, House Bill 497 is again before us on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 36 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 497, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 562, Delegate Hornberger, Special Chesapeake Bay Coastal Sport Fishing License, Non-Residents License Fee.
House Bill 562 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 37 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 562, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 571, Delegate Shi, Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program Modifications.
House Bill 571 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 32 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 571, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 628, Delegate S. Johnson, Health Occupational Clinical Marriage and Family Therapist, Reciprocal Licensure Requirements.
House Bill 628 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 628, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 649, Delegate White Holland, Labor and Employment, Equal Pay for Equal Work, Wage Range Transparency.
House Bill 649 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 37 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 649, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 650, Delegate Waffo, Maryland Department of Labor, Report on Apprenticeship Mentoring Ratios.
House Bill 650 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 650, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 710, Delegate Rogers, Business Regulation, Household Good Movers, Special Fund, and Fees.
House Bill 710 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 33 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 710, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 738, Delegate Wims, Business Regulation, Licensed Home Improvement Contractors, Liability Insurance.
House Bill 738 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 738, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 882, Delegate Rosenberg, Business Regulation, Sale of Motor Fuel Price Signage, Gas Price Clarity Act.
House Bill 882 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 37 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 882, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 979, Delegate Foley, Agricultural Invasive Plant Species Regulation, Biodiversity and Agriculture Protection Act.
House Bill 979 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 979, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. I recognize the Minority Whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. On House Bill 562, my button did not work, and I wish to be recorded negative, red.
House Bill 562, Madam Clerk had my children run and check every button, so I don't know. It was working at the beginning.
Got to find that paper clip for the red button in
right.
these final days of session. Thank you, Mr. President.
And it was to be in the negative, is that correct? Or in the nay?
Yes, sir, red.
In
Yes,
red.
sir.
Okay. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. All right. Let's see. Let's go back to these. We'll see if this was working now. The consent calendar. Start with number 12, consent 8.
third reading House Bill Calendar number 12, Consent number 8.
All right. These are third reading House. Nope. Still off. Apparently there is a glitch because they are both number 9. So it is there. If senators scroll down to consent calendar number 8, the first bill on the calendar is House Bill 13. Or Control F13, apparently. The highlight is incorrect, but yeah. All right, well, we can go to, let's do this. We'll hold on that. Let's go to third reading calendar number 10. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill number 1, Delegate Boyce, Maryland Paint Stewardship.
House Bill number 1 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 34 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 1, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 62, Delegate Simpson, State Employees' Rights and Protections, Personal Actions and Harassment, Investigation of Complaints.
House Bill 62 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 35 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 62, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 76, Delegate Lopez, Health Occupations Pharmacists Administration of Vaccines. This is an emergency bill.
House Bill 76 is on third reading for final passage. Senators, this is an emergency bill. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote?
Mr. President.
Yes, the chair recognizes the minority whip has 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Just explaining my vote quickly on this bill. We've had this before. I just have some grave concerns about expanding vaccinations to young children through pharmacies. It's very important for children at young ages, and there were some amendments to this bill, but even for things like a COVID shot, which is not actually a vaccine, but a COVID shot or a flu vaccine or any of those kind of things, I think it's very important that young children go see their pediatrician. We do know there's sometimes access issues, but I don't think the answer to that is widespread opening up for pharmacies to be doing these kinds of vaccines. And unfortunately, the body rejected a common sense amendment on the Senate bill that would have made sure that we don't allow these big corporate pharmacies to put quotas in place on their pharmacists to try to push a certain number of vaccines, which we have seen happen in other parts of the country. So my vote on this is read, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any further senators wish to explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 35 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 76, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 113, Delegate Lehman, Vehicle Laws, Horse Riding, Helmet Requirements for Minors.
House Bill 113 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 38 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 113, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 211, Delegate Taveras, Business Regulation, Contractors, Subcontractors, and Brokers, Prohibited Conduct.
House Bill 211 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 33 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 211, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 256, Delegate D. Jones, Waterway Incident Notification Systems Study.
House Bill 256 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 45 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 256, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 260, Delegate Chang, State Personnel Collective Bargaining Supervisory Employees.
House Bill 260 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 36 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 260, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 380, Delegate Solomon, State Emergency Medical Services Board License and Certifications Application Requirement.
House Bill 380 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 34 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 380, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
House Bill 385, Delegate J. Long, wage payment and collection, pay stubs and pay statements, required information.
House Bill 385 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 34 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 385, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
House Bill 464, Delegate Martinez, Health Occupations Practice Audiology Definition.
House Bill 464 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, House Bill 464, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, yes, Senator from the 42nd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. On House Bill 260, I'd like to change my vote from yea to nay.
Yea to nay on 260.
Yes. I got a
If
red
the
card.
page could collect the notice. Any objections to the vote change? Without objection, so ordered. Any further administrative duties on that front? Let's go to the special order, Senate Bill 101. Clerk could read the bill.
Senate Bill 101, Senator McCray, University of Baltimore Schaefer Center for Public Policy Funding, favorable with 3 amendments.
All right, questions on the 3 committee amendments. Do we want to?
We did the favorable.
I don't
report.
think we got to the 3 amendments. I think we were waiting for them, right? Okay, so let's do, questions on the 3 committee amendments. Any objection to the 3 committee amendments? Without objection, the 3 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. The Senator has a floor amendment. The pages will collect and distribute the amendment. Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is just a technical amendment which corrects an error in the reporting due date.
All right, Senator moves the amendment as the floor leader. Any objections? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 101 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. All right, we're going to leave these other 2 as unfinished business and take them up tomorrow on Monday. So that does it. Desk is mainly clear. We have the last day for a number of our pages, and so would recognize the co-chair of our protocol committee and ask if we could ask the majority leader and the deputy majority leader, minority leader and deputy majority leader if we could, to join at the front and have the pages join us up front.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. President. So the first we have Sydney Asan from Prince George's County, District 24, joined us.
Thank you so much.
Next, Siddharth Ghosh from Ocomico County, District 37. Next, we had Marguerite Mantler, Baltimore County, District 11. Next, we had Rodney McGraw Jr. from Baltimore City, District 8. Annabella McKernan, Anne Arundel County, District 30. Pratham Satya from Howard County, District 9. And then Pragna Yalamanchili from Frederick County, District 3.
Excellent. We'll make sure we get a picture here. And this is a historic page group. It would be the only pages to have the 2 boats as part of their, you know, their page experience picture. Well, at least with the casing, you know, I think if we're going to work on the casing. We're going to work on the casing. We'll see from there. Well, thank you all. Thank you, the pages. We are so appreciative of each and every one of you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You did a phenomenal job. Truly phenomenal job. Senator from the 33rd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one other protocol responsibility. We have a birthday today. Permission to use the senator's name?
Senator may proceed.
It is Senator Jackson's 60th birthday. If you give him a round of applause.
Hey! Happy birthday. You know, it's hard to believe. I thought 29 was certain. We forgot to
Mr. President?
Yes, Senator from Baltimore County.
We rode the bus together.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's funny. That is funny. All right, I forgot to check in with committees. Do we have anything with committees? Nope. Senator, Chair of Education, Energy, and the Environment.
Yes, on Monday at 4, we still have a lot of big bills in the committee. 4 p.m. on Monday, we will meet for a voting session. Monday, 4 p.m.
Monday, 4 o'clock. Right. Chair, Budget and Tax.
Thank you, Mr. President. It'll just be a stay tuned for Monday for conference committee, possible voting, but definitely the conference committee.
All right, excellent. Judicial proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Judicial Proceedings Committee will meet on Monday at 4 p.m. for a voting session.
All right. Any further standing committees, select committees? Yes, Senator from Baltimore County.
Thank you very much. Now rise as the chair of ethics. So we will be meeting on Monday at 5:45. That's Monday at 5:45.
Okay, are there any other announcements? All right, seeing none, Chair recognizes the senator from the 46th District.
Yeah, it's, thank you, Mr. President. I have would like to move to suspend the rules for the introduction of a bill, and for senators to know this is the bill having to do with Maryland opportunities in regional trade, protecting regional trade, the Maryland Port Bill. This bill is related to the workers and small businesses and that are in and around the port. We have worked closely with the senator from District 6 and other members in this chamber. And I can tell you the 46th District this week has been in a very challenging place. Yesterday I had the opportunity to sit with the Admiral of the Coast Guard, who is here as part of the Unified Command in the cruise terminal, with 5 different federal agencies, state agencies, and federal officials. There's probably 300 individuals who are in the cruise terminal currently. And it was remarkable what they were doing. I mean, truly remarkable how organized and amazing they were working. And had asked the Admiral, several times in several different ways, how long do you think this is going to take? What's it going to look like? What's going to happen? And what he said was he just felt that it would be irresponsible to be able to say. It is one of the most extraordinary situations and complex recovery endeavors that he's had to face, and so he didn't feel comfortable giving a date. And the sad reality is that there are hundreds of businesses, thousands of individuals who that uncertainty means that they don't know what they're doing with their livelihood. When we had the pandemic, the port was open. This is the first time in anyone's recent memory where the public and private terminal and all of the businesses associated with it are closed. And so, Mr. President, this is to introduce a bill to suspend Rule 32A for the late introduction of a bill.
All right, the senator has moved to suspend Rule 32A for purposes of a late bill introduction. Are there any objections to the senator's motion? Without objection, the rules have been suspended and the bill has been introduced. The clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 1188, Senator Ferguson, Maryland Protecting Opportunities in Regional Trade Port Act. This is an emergency bill.
Mr. President.
The chair again recognizes the senator from the 46th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move to suspend Rule 32B for the purpose of sending it directly to its standing committee.
The senator has moved to suspend Rule 32B and refer the bill directly to the appropriate standing committee. Are there any objections to the senator's motion? Without objection, Rule 32B has been suspended and the bill will be referred to Finance and Budget and Taxation committees. Okay, are there any further announcements? If not, we'll do a quorum call before adjournment.
Mr. President Pro Tem.
All right. Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, clerk will take the call. With 45 members and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. The chair recognizes the Deputy Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President Pro Tem. I move that the Senate of Maryland stands adjourned until Monday, which will be April 1st at 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Monday.
Without objection, so ordered.